All right, welcome to WeatherGod's Wisdom. This is a map of the Atlantic today. We're looking at, we're going to be discussing first 95L, this kind of blob of convection in here, and then we're going to be discussing this system out here. As always, be sure to use the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service for final decisions, and all satellite and model data credit goes to tropicaltidbits.com and simtropic.ssec.wic.edu for all maps and stuff. So we're going to be discussing 95L first. We've got the last kind of frames of visible here. If you look back, you can see clouds are moving generally more southward today, and the kind of lower level vorticity somewhere in here. Not a low level center yet because it's not a robust enough rotation, and you do have blobs of convection kind of firing in and around the system, and so yeah, a lot of convection is starting to fire. You don't really have much. It's just a more inverted state. You have like a kind of a semicircle of sorts. If you look at water vapor, you've got a kind of divergent flow over the system. You've got an upper level low right here, an upper level low right here, and an upper level low right here, which is all kind of developing this somewhat of an anticyclone over the system, which has allowed for convection to really pop because a more divergent flow aloft allows for that to happen more efficiently and allows for the convection to gradually become more intense and organize a little bit. The only problem that has been kind of hindering the system all day has been some mid-level shear that you're seeing on the lower level cloud tops. If you look at the diurnal convection right in here, it's starting to move a little bit to the north, and that's some mid-level shear that's kind of impinging upon the system right now as it moves generally to the west-northwest. And so let's look at intensity forecasts for our little buddy 95L. So we're going to look at a better map because this sucks. So we have it's a pretty small circulation at around 42 hours. They have the HWRF model has, and sorry, my Wi-Fi is like terrible right now. I don't know why. Baylor Wi-Fi is just like really bad right now. And so you have, it kind of just evolves into a kind of a low-level tropical storm. And you can see that on the European model, kind of on the vorticity. You can see some like 30-knot wind barbs in here. And as it briefly crosses over the Gulf of Mexico, and it kind of intensifies here. If you look at the National Hurricane Center 5-day forecast, you can see the kind of general development area for the system is anywhere from the northeastern Gulf, which is kind of seeming more likely. We've had some like windshield wiper effects today in the models, where they'll track. If I can get the water vapor loop of the Gulf of Mexico, you can have you kind of get a track that goes over Florida longer, like we saw with the European model, or it moves a little more west-northwestward, and we might be talking about the Central Gulf here. Texas, not so much, just because I don't think it could get that far west. This upper level low is a little weaker than forecasted, which is good for the system, not for the northern Gulf Coast. But we'll talk about that in a minute. You can notice, if you notice here, the immediate mid-level environment out ahead of the system is pretty moist, and it's going to remain that way as this system, this upper level low, kind of begins to move more Gulf moisture right here into the system, kind of pumps some mid-level moisture into the system. And going back to northwestern Atlantic water vapor loop, you can see that the storm is very healthy. It's not the healthiest, otherwise it would be developed, but it's going to kind of drift off to the west-northwest, and we've already talked about that. And regarding potential impacts, we're going to talk about our little buddy over here in a minute. We could see anywhere in between a low-end tropical storm and a high-end tropical storm affecting anywhere along the as far east as or west as New Orleans, all the way to the Big Bend region in Florida. So if you are in the path of the system, prepare largely for heavy rain if you are inland and immediately on the coast, of course. And if you're on the coast, prepare for a little bit of storm surge. And by a little bit, I mean probably about a 1 to 3 foot inundation at the landfall point. And really, I would prepare for a much stronger system, just because it is the Gulf of Mexico, and last year Michael was forecast to make landfall. Hurricane Michael was forecast to make landfall as a tropical storm, and made landfall as a Category 5 hurricane. So vastly different intensity forecast. Unexpected changes can happen with systems in the Gulf. That's just one example. I don't think that this is going to happen personally. It's not entering a very good environment, and the shear for the system will be, as you can see here, largely against the system. You have streamlines, because the system will be positioned somewhere in here, and the streamlines are almost perpendicular to the track of the system, which is not good for development. But if this shear is weaker and the system is a little further to the west, we could talk about a system that would be a little stronger, impacting the northern Gulf Coast. And this is good because apparently the northern Gulf Coast needs some rain, and so you will be getting that rain. And the H4 finally loaded. So it kind of has this just kind of weak tropical storm that kind of goes through the Florida Straits here. And there's multiple kind of vorticities here, and you don't really have, it's not an organized system, obviously, which is kind of why you see this bouncing back and forth. Anyway, that's all for that system. Just be prepared for a rain event. And now let's talk briefly about this system. Is not an invest yet, is almost let's just check this out. If I do shift click here, almost more than 3,000 miles away from the Florida coastline. 3,160 nautical miles. That is far. So, someone just sneezed, dang. You have a ton of track variability, and really this thing starts to kind of get into the general longitude of the United States around 240 hours, which is 10 days away. So this has a lot of lead time. I'm only going to take the temporary development of the system and show this to you. And this is 5 days out, this frame. And you can see the Euro has our little North Gulf Coast system moving in, and it has a weaker system right here. Not a very potent system. It's a potent tropical wave at this point, and you can see that it is a very broad circulation. You have wind barbs on the eastern side pointing more to the north, and southward facing wind barbs on the western side. And so this is a very broad system, and this is the last frame that I will show you, because a lot will change. And I mean, if you go a little further, well, I'll show you, for example. European model has a strong hurricane in the Bahamas. Well, if you go back a couple of runs, and you can only do that with the Euro in select situations, you can see it's all over the place. This is totally different than it was like just a couple days ago. There's not a ton of consistency here, and consistency will become more clear and better as we get closer. But for now, this is not even an immediate threat to the islands, and that is almost 1,200 miles, more than 1,200 miles away from Florida. So, or any United States impacts. This has a long way to go. So I wouldn't panic about this now, but you know, just keep a watchful eye out. Anyway, that's all for this video. I'm gonna get back to studying because, yeah, oh God, wish me luck, dude. I have a bio test tomorrow. This is gonna be terrible. But yeah, have a good night and stay safe, and thanks for watching.